They liked the balance that they had in race.
Casey Kane, we congratulate him, his third career pole.
It's all three Hendrick Motorsports in the front.
There's a few movers and shakers out there.
To victory lane is Joey Logano.
Get the inside line on who's fast and who's last before setting your NASCAR fantasy race team this weekend. This is the Inside Line on MRN.com, presented by Hercules Tires. Now, here are your fantasy experts.
It's the Bluegrass State edition of the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires. Thanks for stopping by for another half hour of fantasy racing talk here on a Friday on MRN.com. I'm Robbie Mays. This is Tyler. You've lost a lot of weight.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You look good.
No, I'm not Tyler.
It's Rich Culbreth.
Rich.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Tyler is on assignment this weekend at Kentucky Speedway for the Motor Racing Network for the Quaker State 400 weekend coming up tomorrow night. PRN has coverage of the race tomorrow night. But before we get to Kentucky, Rich, let's go back to Daytona. Some interesting things happened over the course of the weekend, including the person who won our league. I call shenanigans on this.
You know, this is amazing. The guy that finished first place in the MRN NASCAR Inside Line Fantasy Live, his lineup was incredible. Wreckenham wide. Why you came up with this lineup, I have absolutely no idea, but I have to take my hat off to you. He had David Reagan, Landon Castle, Michael McDowell, Ty Dillon, and he picked a winner, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, I understand the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I understand, you know,
sure.
As far as your budget goes, you can't afford all top drivers, but
right.
He put all drivers that are like around $12 or less. He probably had $40 sitting on the bench.
Well, I mean, I get the Ricky Stenhouse. I like the Michael McDowell. I had the Michael McDowell on my team. But you look at it, David Reagan finished, what, 8th? Ty Dillon was up there. He led some laps on Saturday night. So that Wreckham White, whoever you are, congratulations. You're obviously smarter than Tyler and myself and probably Rich too. I finished 1160th. Almost everybody on my team finished the night in the garage.
I think I had one guy left, and that was Kyle Busch, who was wrecked and just barely finished on the lead lap.
Yeah.
So, no, my team was just as bad. In fact, you did better than I did. I was like 2,400.
Yeah.
Somewhere along in there. The last 2 weeks for me have been terrible. Sonoma. I mean, I had Truex on my team there.
Right.
I had a couple other guys that ended up not doing that well. And then last week, you know, I had all my guys wreck, and I'm like, oh, man. So, golly, Sonoma and Daytona have been tough on Rich 1.
But here's the deal about Sonoma and Daytona. Those are wild card races, obviously, because anything can happen. Going forward up until the start of the playoffs, I mean, we've got Kentucky this weekend. We go to New Hampshire. We've got Indianapolis, Pocono again. Maybe Watkins Glen could be considered a wild card, but for the most part, we're done with wild cards until we get to the playoffs.
That's probably good because I'm starting to drop in the standings, and I need some stability for my team.
Getting back to our bread and butter picks coming up this weekend at the Kentucky Speedway. Coming up on today's show, we will play Sideswipe, a new game we started last week here on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show. We're also going to talk to Jeff Gluck of jeffgluck.com. Get his opinion about the first half of the season and what we can expect going into Saturday night's race at the Kentucky Speedway. We'll do all of that next as we return on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
Keep your windows clean and see clearer with Gunk Glass Cleaner. Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, buy one bottle of Gunk Glass Cleaner and get one free. Gunk's high-performance ingredients clean glass and hard surfaces without leaving a film or residue. Gunk Glass Cleaner, buy one, get one free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's almost the most refreshing time of the day. Busch O'Clock, a time for relaxing and unwinding with friends and family over a crisp, cold Busch beer. Busch's roots are in racing, but whether you're enjoying the race or going fishing, nothing is better when it's time to relax with a crisp, cold Busch. It's Busch O'Clock. So grab a 6-pack of Busch beer for the cooler, start the grill, and relax. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch, Busch Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
When the smoke settles, the entertainment never stops.
And that you're supposed to be having fun.
On race weekends, your favorite NASCAR personality is an everyday superhero.
The Superman colors with Jimmy Johnson.
But when they leave the racetrack, they're just like everyone else.
So I have to challenge myself more to stay balanced with my personal and professional life.
I'm Susie Armstrong. Join me on a daily journey as we discuss the hot topics and engaging personalities of NASCAR Nation. Ned Jarrett's World of Racing, weekdays on the Motor Racing Network.
Yay or nay, go or stay. It's time for the inside line to sideswipe the competition. Here's Robbie and Tyler.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires. I'm Robbie Mays. Rich Culbreth sitting in for Tyler Burnett on assignment this week. We started this game last week. It's called Sideswipe here on the Inside Line, and the basic premise of it is if you've ever used a dating app on your phone, you have to swipe right or swipe left for the people that you like or you don't like. It might be the one good idea that Tyler Burnett has. Okay, it's not a good idea, but it's an idea, and we needed time to fill on this show because we were kind of running out of ideas for things to do.
He's looking for women on a website?
No, I was.
Oh,
yeah.
But he came up with the idea.
He came up with the idea.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so again, we don't know who the drivers are going to be. Producer Daryl is going to tell us who the drivers are going to be. We will swipe right, and we put up signs this week because we kept messing this up last week. We swipe right if we like the pick. We swipe left if we don't like the pick. Rich, I'm going to be nice and let you go first.
Okay, so I'll go and then you go. Now,
Yes.
Can you disagree?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's try this
So
first.
3 drivers apiece. Rich, you go first. Daryl, what's up first?
Let's do Chase Elliott.
All right, Chase Elliott. So I'm going to say no this week on Chase Elliott. He's only had one start at Kentucky Speedway, and it was like a 35th place finish. So Chase Elliott, I think he got better options. I'm not saying he's not going to do well, but I don't really think Chase Elliott. I think he got something better to use.
Okay, so he will swipe left. What's up? What's up next?
Let's do Clint Boyer.
Clint Boyer. Okay, so Clint Boyer has finished second the last 2 weeks in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series at Sonoma and at Daytona, and that's kind of getting back to where he was at the start of the season. I'm still going to swipe left on Clint Boyer. I messed it up again. I just don't know about this team on the downforce racetracks right now, on these intermediate racetracks. So for this week at Kentucky, if he goes out, and again, I want him to prove me wrong. It's like I said, at Sonoma 2 weeks ago and at Daytona last week. But this week, I'm swiping left on Clint Boyer.
That car finished in the top 5 this past year.
With Tony Stewart behind the wheel.
The wheel. And it was a fuel mileage race as well.
It was. Yeah. All right, what's next?
Let's go with Austin Dillon.
Austin Dillon. That's a good one. He's you know what? I'm going to swipe yes on that one.
Okay.
Because Austin Dillon, he's already got a win on a 1.5-mile track. He did win at Charlotte.
Also a fuel mileage race.
It was a fuel mileage race,
Yeah.
but he still, it still goes down in the record books as a win on a 1.5-mile track. So Austin Dillon, he's one of those guys you might be able to get a good price, but watch where he qualifies. If he qualifies really well, maybe not start him. So maybe I'm just going to stay right in the middle on that one.
No, you have to swipe left or swipe right.
Okay.
You have to choose one.
All right, I'm going to go yes.
Okay.
All right.
Who's next?
Matt Kenseth.
Matt Kenseth. This one is easy for me. I'm swiping right on Matt Kenseth this week. The only driver who's finished in the top 10 in all previous 6 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series races at the Kentucky Speedway, 6th, 7th, 1st, 4th, 5th, and 8th. I'm swiping right this week on Matt Kenseth.
I think Joe Gibbs Racing gets a win this weekend. It may not be with Matt Kenseth, but I think Matt is going to do well.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Who's next?
Darrell Wallace Jr.
Ooh,
that's yours.
Again, this depends on how he qualifies. If he qualifies well, don't go with him. But let's just say he doesn't qualify that well. I'm going to say yes. I would say start Bubba Wallace because like if he qualifies below 25th place, definitely start him. If he qualifies in the top 10, then I'm going to have to say the other way.
Okay. He's turned a lot of laps on this track in the Xfinity Series and the Camping World Truck Series, so he's got a lot of experience here. All right, last driver. Who's it going to be?
Let's do Eric Jones.
Eric Jones. Wow. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to think about this for a second. He's been running a lot better the last handful of races, finished in the top 10 at Daytona last week. I've said it before, you know, he's gotten a lot better. Was he ready to move up to the Cup Series at the beginning of the year? No, but he's gotten a whole lot better as the season has gone on. So for me, this week at Kentucky, again, he's run truck races, Xfinity races there before. I'm going to swipe right on Eric Jones this week.
All right.
All right, so that's 4 yeses and 2 nos. I hope we are...
Those are tough picks. I mean,
they really are.
There are some really tough picks, but you bring up some pretty good points. But again, it goes back to qualifying. Watch how these guys qualify. If you got someone like a Bubba Wallace that's qualifying poorly, you got someone like Eric Jones that qualifies in the top 5. I'm not so sure I would go with Eric Jones qualifying in the top 5.
Yeah.
But I think there's some other choices. I mean, if you've got a budget, if you're on a fantasy league like what we are, we get $100. And some of those guys cost about $25, $26, and then you want to go with some of the lower price guys just to make up the roster. I think you need to watch qualifying and go with that after you see who starts where.
Okay, so those are some of our wild card picks. Let's talk about some locks for Saturday's Quaker State 400 at Kentucky Speedway. If you go down the list of drivers who have won here at Kentucky before, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, that's it. 6 races, those 3 guys have been the dominant force. Brad Keselowski, to me, stands out more than anybody else.
Oh, yeah. He's only had 1 bad finish, and it was because he wrecked. It was a 33rd place finish a few years ago. But Brad Keselowski, he's got the 3rd best average, but that's because of that bad finish. The 2 guys that are ahead of him, Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth. Now, I tell you what, 2 guys that you need to have on your team. As you mentioned, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch is the other guy. The worst finish that he's ever had at Kentucky is a 12th place, and that was 1 year ago. But Kyle Busch, you know, I like patterns. I mean, if you look at the patterns, look at this. Brad Keselowski, well, the first win was Joe Gibbs Racing with Kyle Busch.
Right.
Next one was Brad Keselowski.
Right.
The next one was Joe Gibbs Racing. The next one, Brad Keselowski. And then, you know, so it's
Team Penske Gibbs, Team Penske Gibbs.
Right. So if with that in mind, you have to think that Joe Gibbs Racing is going to win this weekend.
If you look at the number of laps led for the race winners in this race, the first year Kyle Busch led 125 laps. The second year he led 118 laps. Brad Keselowski in 2014 led 199, Kyle 163 2 years ago. Last year Brad led 75 laps on the way to victory. Kevin Harvick led 128 laps last year. He probably had the dominant car 1 year ago. The last couple of weeks, we haven't had a lot of laps in these races, but now we're back up to 267 laps on Saturday night. So laps led can get you some points this weekend.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's probably been my saving grace the last couple of weeks because I just didn't pick the guy that led a whole lot of laps, but it really didn't make a whole lot of difference.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of points to be had. But you're right. These races where you have 267 laps, go back to Charlotte where we had 400 laps.
Right.
I mean, whoever picks that guy that leads the most laps, you're going to rack up on some points. If you don't, then you're out to lunch. But with that said, Brad Keselowski, look who starts from the pole. Look who starts in the top 5. The stats as far as the winner coming, I think we've had 2 pole winners that went on to win the race. So there's a good chance, and with only 6, that's a good percentage. So whoever starts from the pole, there's a good chance that they're going to win this race and lead a ton of laps.
We threw out Eric Jones, his teammate Martin Truex Jr. He's won a couple of times this year, won at Kansas. Hasn't had the best track record at Kentucky Speedway. Led 46 laps last year. What do you think about Truex this weekend?
You know, he's been racking a lot stage points. He has been the master at winning these stage points. And, you know, I think Truex, you're right. You're looking at his stats at Kentucky, and they're not that good. But, man, you look back at the mile and a halves that he's had this year. I mean, he's won twice. And like you said, he's won a lot of stages. So, I want to start him. Again, I'm going to watch practice, watch qualifying, and see how he looks. But Martin Truex Jr., I think, is someone that should be on your team, along with Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch.
Okay, so there are a couple of locks for this weekend, if you will, going into tomorrow night's race. We're going to take another commercial break here on the Inside Line. When we come back on the other side of this break, Jeff Gluck of jeffgluck.com is going to join us. But before we go to break, if you have not been listening to Richard Petty Road to Royalty presented by STP on MRN.com, you're missing out on a treat. Richard Petty sat down with us earlier this year. His 80th birthday was last Sunday. So if you haven't had a chance, go to MRN.com right now under the Media Center tab or the On Demand tab. You can catch all of the 2 episodes we've had so far with Richard Petty.
This week's show is about Daytona and his success at that track. It is some amazing stories because Petty's got some great stories.
He really does. So let's take a break. Jeff Gluck comes up on the other side. You're listening to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
Whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules Tires will get you there, whether you're running on dirt, or running a job. Our dependable, high-quality tires are the perfect fit for your needs. For unmatched value, selection, and warranty with industry-leading road hazard protection, there's only one choice: Hercules Tires. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com or call 800-677-9535. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
Online and on the air, MRN is live from the track on MRN.com and the MRN app. Check out all MRN race broadcasts, pole qualifying, and practices, plus exclusive motorsports programming live on your computer or mobile device. Or go to MRN.com to find your local radio station's online stream. Don't miss a second of NASCAR racing action. Listen live online at MRN.com, the MRN app, or your local station.
This is Steve Post.
I'm Aaron Evernham.
Tuesdays at 12 Eastern, join us for Wing Nation on MRN.com, the MRN app, YouTube, and Facebook Live on MRN's Facebook page.
We'll give you the latest race results from the dirt tracks and have all the latest Wing Sprint Car news.
We'll also talk with drivers from the World of Outlaws to local tracks all over America.
Can't listen live? Check out Wing Nation on demand on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and MRN.com.
Wing Nation, your home for Wing Sprint Car racing talk.
Welcome back to the Inside Line.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires. I'm Robbie Mays. This is Rich Culbreth. We're getting ready for the weekend at Kentucky Speedway, one of the newer tracks on the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Tour. And to talk about Kentucky Speedway and everything going on this year, Jeff Gluck of JeffGluck.com joins us. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing fine, man. We're ready for Kentucky this weekend, but before we start talking about this week's race, we basically finished up the first half of the season last Saturday night at Daytona International Speedway. In your viewpoint, biggest storyline so far of 2017?
Well, it's weird. I mean, you normally say, geez, Dale Jr. decided to retire or something like that, but I think maybe that could have been somewhat predicted in the next year or two. So I'll have to go with Joe Gibbs Racing not having a win yet. That's an even bigger shock to me, just based on how well they've been doing the last couple of years. The fact that they're winless still this long into the season with 4 great drivers. I know one of them's a rookie, but still, I mean, especially with how well that their affiliate Furniture Row Racing is doing, it's just like, man, it's just so hard to explain. And they've been running well. Like Kyle Busch could have won probably 4 races by now, but it's just crazy how they haven't been to victory lane yet.
Looking at this weekend, Jeff, Kentucky Speedway, Kyle Busch has won twice there. In fact, Joe Gibbs Racing won 3. They've won half the races that we've had. How do you see them doing this weekend? I mean, do you think Kyle Busch might get it back on the road? Do you think that whole organization is going to turn things around this weekend?
Well, it's definitely a big opportunity for them to do that, because I believe that Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth are tied for the best average finish at Kentucky. I think they have like a 5.2 average finish or something. So if there's a place where they can get back on track and get to victory lane, this would be a good candidate. You know, they're back on a mile and a half now, and it's been a while since a mile and a half. I think Kansas maybe was the last one. Oh, no, I guess Charlotte with Coke 600.
Yeah, Charlotte.
But, you know, you've had some weird races or more oddly designed tracks recently. You know, you've had a Pocono, you've had a road course, you've had a super speedway. You know, Michigan doesn't race exactly like a mile and a half. So, and Dover, throw Dover in there as well. So it's been a while, and now is a chance to see if they've made gains on it and if they can, you know, finally get back to victory lane, especially at an intermediate track, which we know are so important come playoff time.
Jeff, one of the feel-good stories of 2017, I think, has to be the return to victory lane for Roush Fenway Racing. Of course, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has won both races for them this year at Talladega and last Saturday night at Daytona. Are they for real, Roush Fenway, Stenhouse, and Trevor Bayne? I know Bayne has had some pretty decent finishes in his 2 races at Kentucky Speedway. Are those 2 guys you look at this week to put on your fantasy team, or do you maybe want to steer clear of them this week?
For me, I'd steer clear with them unless, you know, they qualified sort of toward the back and I could pick up points on position differential or something. But, you know, it's just obviously super speedways are quite a different beast. And even Stenhouse said after the race that they're really just not ready to compete yet for victories and run up front regularly at mile-and-a-half tracks. So I think they still have a lot of work to do. They've obviously made gains and had quite a nice turnaround. But they're still a ways off. I think they're still a level down from the top running teams. So it would be something where if you're just looking for people who are going to go for a win in top fives, I mean, those aren't the first guys that I would look at.
Earlier in the show, we talked about Martin Truex Jr., Jeff, and his numbers at Kentucky are not that great, but his numbers for the mile-and-a-half tracks are really good this year. So I'm kind of on the fence on starting Martin Truex Jr. How do you say, I mean, Kentucky Speedway is obviously a mile-and-a-half, but is it very different from Texas or Atlanta or Charlotte? I mean, is it I know it's smaller banking, but I mean, can you put that into perspective?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think since it's been repaved as well, it's a little bit different of an animal. And so I don't know if the stats from the first part of the Kentucky era apply exactly the same as they do now. I know that Martin Truex Jr. has been pretty good on tracks that don't wear out as quickly. Like if you look at Kansas, having been repaved recently, he's been pretty good at Kansas. Charlotte, even though it was repaved a while ago, it still hasn't worn out as much, and he's been really good at Charlotte. So those are a couple tracks where I go, I know that, like you said, his stats aren't the best at Kentucky, but I certainly wouldn't shy away from him. I know he'd be an expensive player to have on your team probably, but at the same time, if he's going to go out and dominate the race and lead a bunch of laps, he's worth it.
So, Jeff, we've talked about the big names to watch on Saturday night. We've talked about the Truexes, the Keselowskis, the Bushes, the Kansas of the world. Talk about some spoilers. Who might sneak up there on Saturday night, maybe use some pit strategy. We saw a fuel mileage race here last year. Who might be somebody to try to sneak up there and get a win to try to get into the playoffs?
Well, I keep thinking of Eric Jones. I mean, he's pretty affordable for most fantasy leagues that are using salary caps. And, he's still somewhat under the radar because he hasn't won yet, but yet he's in very good equipment. He continues to, I think, get better every week, get more experience under his belt. And he's a guy who could, I think people still sort of just overlook him. Even when you talk about the young guys, it's Blaney, Larson, Elliott, guys like that. But you don't really mention Eric Jones as much. And, I think there's a guy who really could go to victory lane. And by the same token, Suarez is starting to look a little bit better to me. He's starting to get a little bit more confidence, I think. I know it's obviously, like we say, completely different, but look how he raced at Daytona. I mean, just the confidence he has. I don't think he was showing that at the beginning of the season. And if you're confident somewhere, I think that applies on all sorts of tracks. So obviously, if Gibbs is back, if they're making gains, he's somebody that I would definitely look at as well if you're looking for a bargain.
Talking about feel-good stories for 2017, Michael McDowell the last couple of weeks and pretty much all season has been a big surprise. Now, he's not going to be a team that's going to be running in the top 10 every single week, but yeah, do you start Michael McDowell this weekend?
Yeah, that's another one that's tricky because I've actually started him a couple times this year, and because, they have the Richard Childress Racing affiliation, and you think, okay, well, geez, they're in pretty good equipment. He's had some good runs, and maybe he can do something for me. Obviously he's a good bargain. And the times I started him, at least, not at a plate track, the results weren't that great. So now I'm a little gun-shy on McDowell. I, by the same token, am getting a little bit more optimistic on Ty Dillon. Same type of situation, obviously in the RCR affiliate equipment for Germain Racing. But also very affordable, and somebody that has been able to put together some good runs at times. So if you're looking to go that direction, that might not be bad as well. Austin Dillon, even though he's a little bit more high profile, if you want somebody from the RCR camp, he's been kind of quietly putting together a nice season also. So, even Paul Menard is somebody who, Ryan Newman's the obvious one at times to get you a top 10, but he's a little bit more expensive. But if you're looking for another bargain type guy, Paul Menard could also fit the bill there.
One other guy I want to talk about, and this is on the other end of the spectrum, but Jimmy Johnson won at Texas, a newly paved track there. Can you use that for running at Kentucky this weekend? Do you think Jimmy Johnson's going to maybe run away with it again like he did there?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I feel like Jimmy, the wins he's gotten, it hasn't necessarily all of them been a dominating victory. You look at Dover, how that happened, and it's just kind of like he's able to win these races, but I don't see him going out and dominating and running up front every week. So I don't know that I would trust him because he's going to be an expensive guy to have on your team. I think I'd rather have a Truex or a Kyle Busch or a Keselowski, as you mentioned, who's won there 3 times. You know, for Johnson, I want to see him start to lead more laps before I can really trust him. Now, if he qualifies, you know, toward the back in the 20s or something, that would definitely be a consideration because I think he's going to move up and get a top 5 or top 10. But you know, I don't think they're quite where they were, even though he's won a few races this year.
All right, Jeff, it's that time of the week where we always put our guest on the spot. Who goes to victory lane tomorrow night at Kentucky?
I'm going to say Kyle Busch gets his first win of the year. It just seems like he's been so close lately. He's running so well. I think Gibbs has been making gains, as we talked about, and this is probably a good opportunity for him to go out and finally secure that first victory at 2017.
All right, Kyle Busch, I like that pick. Jeff, thanks for stopping by. As always, we'll catch you down the road.
Yep, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, that's Jeff Gluck of jeffgluck.com. Kyle Busch, victory lane.
Well, it's not very far on a limb. He's won twice at this track,
Yeah.
and I agree. You got to think that, and I've done this for the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's like, okay, yeah, Joe Gibbs Racing is not going to go all season without winning
No, they're not.
a race, and it's going to be soon, and
Yeah.
it's going to be sooner than later.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking Kyle Busch as well. So, but I agree.
All right, let's take one more time out here on the Inside Line. When we come back, Under Rock, Ringo, all that stuff. This is the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
I'm Steve Letarte, STP auto expert and former crew chief. I know what it takes to keep engines performing at their best. STP's latest breakthrough additive, STP Ultra 5-in-1 plus Fuel System Cleaner plus Fuel Stabilizer, delivers 3 times the amount of cleaning agents versus premium gasoline and helps keep fuel fresh during storage. For over 60 years, STP has been on the cutting edge developing products to help engines run better, longer.
One bottle contains 3 times by weight the amount of cleaning agents compared to 20 gallons of the leading premium gasoline.
If your vehicle isn't stopping like it used to, visit O'Reilly Auto Parts for the Summer Brake Deals event. Take advantage of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Do It Right rebate and get a $25 O'Reilly gift card by mail when you buy a set of Brake Best Select pads and a pair of rotors. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's almost Busch o'clock. A time for relaxing and unwinding with a crisp, cold Busch beer. It's the most refreshing time of the day. Wait for it. 3, 2, 1. Busch. Crisp, cold Busch. Enjoy responsibly. Busch Beer. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Let's talk more fantasy racing on the Inside Line.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires. I'm Robbie Mays. He is Rich Culbreth, and it's time for our absolute favorite game of the week, Under a Rock or Tyler.
Do you live your life up under a rock, or are you Tyler Burnett?
This week's Under a Rock is a loss because we said the rules earlier this year must be present to win.
So he's a loser this week. Yeah, that's what you get for hanging out.
That's what you get for not coming to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, throw the rock.
Throw the rock.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, we did that. So, Rango. Rango.
I love that picture.
That's all Daryl Smith on that right there. You got to give him credit for that.
That's a great picture of Rango. I love that guy. All right.
Okay.
See you, Rango.
Go away.
All All right.
See you next week.
I'm curious because Rango's been to him pretty good here the last few weeks. So,
I have been very
yeah.
upset with Rango.
Really?
The last couple of weeks because
he has surpassed you. That's right. He has surpassed you in the standing.
A long time ago.
So
All
I'm
right.
curious.
He's got Matt Kenseth. He's got Kurt Busch. He's got Paul Menard. Interesting. He's got Kyle Busch. He's got Bubba Wallace, and his winner is Kyle Busch. His manufacturer bonus is Toyota.
All right. That's interesting on Paul Menard. But Paul had a great run at Daytona. Different kind of track, but why not?
Sure.
Why not? Let's see how he qualifies.
All of Paul Menard's top 10 finishes this year have been on plate tracks. He's got 3.
All right.
Yeah.
Be interesting. We'll see what happens.
Who's your winner?
That's why we play the game.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to have to go with Jeff on that. I'm going to have to say 18. I got to go with Kyle Busch. Although, I mean, and we've talked about Joe Gibbs Racing. Matt Kenseth is someone that we've been talking about. Denny Hamlin. I'm not sure if Suarez is just quite ready yet to win a race. But, you know, Denny Hamlin could get up there and win it. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to go with 18.
This is the point of the show when Tyler normally says, are you really going to pick whoever everyone else is picking? I'm not. I'm picking Kevin Harvick to win tomorrow night.
Kevin Harvick, someone we haven't even talked about.
He almost won. He almost won this race last year. Probably, I know. He should have won it. Well, he should have won this race last year. So.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that team's just a hair off from winning. So
just a skosh.
Maybe with a little bit of pit strategy, they may pull it off. We'll wait and see.
Tonight it's the Alsco 300 for the NASCAR Xfinity Series at 8 o'clock. That's on PRN and NBCSN. Tomorrow night it's the Quaker State 400 at Kentucky Speedway, 6:30 on the Performance Racing Network. I'd like to thank Rich for sitting in this week. He'll be also in here next week. I'm on vacation next week. Do not call me. I'm not going to answer the phone.
Oh, you're not going to answer?
No. Big
We'll
thanks to producer Daryl, Alexa, Donald, Jennifer was involved with the show today. So thanks for watching The Inside Line, and we will catch you right back here next week as we get ready to head to New Hampshire.
You've been listening to The Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires. Stream us every Friday on MRN.com or the MRN app. The Inside Line is also available on demand in the MRN.com Media Center, on our Facebook page, on YouTube, or download it through iTunes or Google Play. The Inside Line is a production of the Motor Racing Network.